and welcome to our news broadcast. We're coming to you live from our Studio 1 here at the Broadcasting House. This is GTV Breakfast News, so bringing you top stories, making headlines. I am Malti Decider, so they could give you some local and some foreign news. You can watch us on DSTV channel 278, wherever you are in the world. On social media, we're streaming at GTV Ghana. Let's begin from President Akufo-Addo, who's put before political heads, policymakers and stakeholders in Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, a 4-point agenda to accelerate the implementation of the goals. Addressing the SDGs Action Summit 2024 in Accra, the president said unlocking financing for accelerated SDGs implementation, prioritizing human capital development, driving innovation in critical sectors of Africa's economy, and building resilient infrastructure to withstand global shocks and stresses are indicators that will push the continent over the line. He called on African leaders to commit to bold and decisive actions to reinforce dedication to the SDGs.
Has gone past the midpoint of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals target by 2030. It's barely 6 years to the set target date. Despite the slow progress in many aspects of the global goals, achieving them continues to be a prerequisite for global peace, prosperity, and protect the sanity of the planet. The United Nations says only 17 of the SDGs are on course to be achieved by 2030. How to rekindle global leaders, policymakers, stakeholders for this common action has brought these experts to Accra to recommit, scale up, and accelerate actions on the SDGs. The Accra Summit is christened From Midpoint to Success, Recommitting, Scaling Up, and Accelerating Actions on the SDGs. It is to reignite renewed commitment to the implementation of the SDGs and catalyze bold and innovative actions needed to put the SDGs on track across the continent. The unique feature of this year's summit was the presence of the youth, who are the future leaders, to share their thoughts. Dr. Eugene Owusu is Ghana's presidential advisor on the SDGs. He believes an all-hands-on-deck approach is the way to go.
And let's do so with a renewed commitment, with great gusto, and an unwavering determination to transform the fortunes of our continent while safeguarding the future for generations to come.
The Assistant Secretary General and Director, Regional Africa Bureau for UNDP, Madame Aoune Eziakonwa, called for more partnership and collaboration to push Africa closer to achieving the SDGs.
We need to know that success is rooted in our partnership and in our collaboration. And it is through collaboration that we harness the strength of our diverse perspectives, our expertise, and our financing.
A former Prime Minister of Norway and co-chair of Emeritus Group of SDG Advocates, Madame Erna Solberg, believes an action orientation is needed towards attaining the goals. President Akufo-Addo, who is also the co-chair of Emeritus Group of SDG Advocates, said the current generation owe it to future generations to meet the SDG targets.
The consequences of the current situation and its trajectory are dire. If we fail to act decisively now, future generations will inherit a world beset by environmental degradation, economic instability, and social fragmentation. Our children and grandchildren will face harsher climates, scarcer resources, and greater conflicts unless we change course.
He outlined areas Africa must focus on to meet the target date for the next 6 years.
First is unlocking financing for accelerated SDGs implementation. For Africa to achieve the SDGs, we require more than just commitment and hard work at the national level. We need a global financial system that is fair, inclusive, fit for purpose, and supportive of our development goals.
President Akufo-Addo called for commitment to bold and decisive actions to reinforce dedication to the SDGs because, together, they can build a sustainable and prosperous Africa that leaves no one behind.
Let's go to Parliament now. The minority in the House has consented to the legislative instrument, the LI, to regulate cement prices laid by the Minister for Trade and Industry, Mr. K.T. Hammond. On Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024, the LI was laid before Parliament following a stakeholder meeting boycotted by representatives of cement manufacturers on Monday, July 1, 2024. Now, concerns were raised about the rising cement prices, with a bag selling for an average of 105 Ghana cedis. Government therefore initiated processes to regulate the cost with the introduction of a legislative instrument.
Yes, Honorable. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I don't have any issues with this. The last time the minister was here, colleagues from both sides had very serious concerns. Those concerns have been sent back to the committee and have been addressed. I am informed that they have dealt with those issues, and based on the advice that it is no longer harmless. So we okay to support it, at least what I've been told, that it is not about price control. It's the price control element have been taken out. It is about reporting, the price reporting to the committee, and if that is the case, Mr. Speaker, the advice is that it's no longer a special issue, so it can go.
Ghana Standard Authority, pricing of cement regulation 2024.
Yes, bill is duly presented. It's referred to the Committee on Constitution, Subsidiary Legislation, consider and report.
Away from Parliament, a media consultant, Professor Kwame Kakari, has called for a clear-cut definition of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation for it to tailor its services as desired. The former Director General of the corporation says it has not been clear whether the GBC is a public service broadcaster or a state-owned media. The corporation's stakeholder engagement in Accra on sustainability of the public service broadcaster in the new media ecosystem. Professor Kwame Kakari, who chaired the occasion, gave various reasons why GBC must be redefined. Clara Blano reports.
The governance structure and a system for a transformed GBC, financing, programming, decentralization, technological change, and the general policy framework for a sustainable public service broadcaster were the areas guest speaker Professor Kwame Kakari's presentation spoke to. On financing, the media consultant revealed that the traditional media was facing an advertising drought affecting its revenue. Hence, GBC must devise innovative means and other streams of income to keep afloat, while having a homegrown scheme acceptable with the people on TV license collection. When he touched on coping with technological changes, the guest speaker said the engineering arm of the corporation in times past reinvented equipment to meet demands on the market, but the same is no more today. He proposed that GBC looked within its rank by collaborating with other academic institutions to develop machines to suit its work to reduce the over-dependence on foreign equipment. Professor Kakari also noted that the solution partially lies within the draft broadcasting bill, which would address some of these challenges and aid in media development in Ghana.
With or without a broadcasting law, 3 decades of experiences from managing state-owned media under the 1992 Constitution call for a legislative instrument initiated by the NMC to give practical definition and meaning to guide relations between the management of state-owned media and government. The provision of independence and insulation from governmental control has to do with operational autonomy in decision-making. It cannot and should not mean that state-owned media would have absolutely no relationship to the executive or its agencies whatsoever.
He challenged politicians to make clear their stance on GBC, whether it's up for sale or not. Presenting an overview on the current state of GBC, Director General Professor Amin Al-Hassan spelled out ongoing changes from scheme of service, realigning of departments, to the development of a new structure to make the corporation a preferred brand in the media landscape.
Just when we have more channels and we are working hard to honor and to meet our national obligation to reach more districts and more regions. We have this gap of some 547 vacancies unreplaced. So I want to appeal to the government, and very soon management will be producing a paper and will be engaging the National Media Commission to help us make the case that GBC, human resource, we either replace these positions or we shouldn't expect the national broadcaster to meet its obligations effectively.
The NMC resolved to support GBC all the way to succeed. The GJA commended management for responding to change. Other stakeholders encouraged GBC to look beyond Ghana to source for funding to support its work and be abreast with the times before any new or emerging policy forced it out. Clara Mlanu, GBC News, Accra.
Let's stay longer in Accra. Government has committed 1.5 million Ghana cedis as initial contribution to the National Hydrological Fund established to give financial muscle to efforts at tackling flooding and safeguarding water bodies across the country. The fund will shore up revenue from stakeholders and relevant organizations from both public and private sectors to help the Ghana Hydrological Authority in the flood control and coastal protection mandate. Minister for Works and Housing, Mr. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, launched the fund at the 2024 Built Environment National Conference on Housing and Hydrological Bench 2024 in Accra.
Stakeholders from various sectors in the country have gathered in Accra to deliberate on critical issues affecting Ghana's urban development and water management. The Bench 2024 conference, organized by the Ministry of Works and Housing and partners, is the first of its kind and aims to provide a platform for discussion and exchange of insight on pressing challenges related to housing shortage and water management.
Sustainable and resilient development is at the core of our discussions. We are committed to promoting practices that not only meet current needs, but also ensures the well-being of future generations. Our sessions will highlight best practices, innovative technologies, and policy recommendations to drive this agenda forward.
Minister for Works and Housing, Mr. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, who launched the National Hydrology Fund, called on all stakeholders to contribute to it in order to help mitigate the annual flooding the country experiences.
It is my pleasure to here today formally launch the Ghana Hydro Fund and invite all stakeholders, including our development partners and allied bodies, to contribute to the fund and enable it fuel the operations of the Ghana Hydro Authority. Let us not pay lip service to the challenge of floods and sea erosion. Rather, let us follow our words with our money. Government, through the Ministry of Works and Housing, has prioritized an allocation of 1.5 million Ghana cedis as seed money for the fund, which will be handing over to the authority.
Mr. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah also spoke on the government's efforts in addressing the recent 1.8 million housing deficit in the country. He said private developers will be offered incentive packages intended to help provide affordable houses to Ghanaians.
We will share with you our proposed incentives package for your feedback. This package has been developed after extensive consultation with various stakeholders in the sector. It is our expectation that upon conclusion of what we'll call a market sounding here, we shall proceed to Cabinet and Parliament for approval of this incentives package and then move to implement. The incentives are designed to be a major component of our new public-private partnership approach, which is currently before the Ministry of Finance for endorsement.
The conference, which ends on Thursday, July 4, 2024, is on the theme Enhancing Collaboration to Tackle Ghana's Housing and Hydrology Challenges.
Let's do health and well-being. The Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection have collaborated with World Vision Ghana to adore a campaign dubbed Enough. This is a crusade to reach children in underserved communities in Ghana. The campaign seeks to reach 3.5 million vulnerable children by providing them with quality education, health and nutrition, water and sanitation, child protection and participation, as well as food security and humanitarian emergency interventions. All these are a requirement to end child hunger and malnutrition.
Enough nutritious food, enough government money, enough political will, enough to end child hunger and malnutrition was the call at the unveiling of the Enough campaign. The UN Food Programme says child hunger is at its worst in generations. Children are bearing the brunt of an unequal food system disrupted by conflict and climate change, whereas every child deserves the food they need to develop a healthy body and mind, as well as the right to be able to put enough of the right food on the table. Many homes in Ghana, particularly in underserved communities, lack nutritious food on a daily basis, a situation that calls for immediate action, hence the Enough campaign. The 3-year project is a partnership with all the relevant agencies to give food security and humanitarian emergency interventions to children in underserved communities. $3.5 million is expected to be invested in the project over the 36 months. This is expected to help Ghana move a step closer to ending child hunger and malnutrition, which is also SDG Goal 2 of the United Nations. Dr. Laura Delval is the National Director, World Vision. She believes if everyone plays their part, it will be enough to deal with child hunger and malnutrition.
Definitely, we have to say enough. Enough to end child hunger and malnutrition. And I'm hopeful that we can pave the way to new partnership to tackle the hunger crisis and malnutrition, especially for our beloved children here in Ghana.
The Enough campaign is expected to achieve the goals where children are visible and heard in hunger, nutrition and food security related policies at all levels. It is also to ensure that more children enjoy better food security, nutrition and resilience through prioritized services.
Let's look at the elections. Government through the Ministry of Gender, I beg your pardon, the Electoral Commission EC will from tomorrow, Wednesday, 3rd July to Friday, 5th July 2024, reopen the applications for the transfer of votes and proxy across the country. This, it says, will be for the security agencies in all district offices. Additionally, the Commission will extend the application for the transfer of votes to 25 public universities and prisons facilities across the country. The EC, in a statement, says the application for the special voting for the media and security agencies will, however, be reopened from Saturday, 6th July to Sunday, 7th July 2024.
Have been resolved. As a commission, we prefer the online registration to the offline version because the online system ensures that those who have registered as voters do not get your chance to register again. The online system prevents double registration. However, with the offline registration, because the data is transferred after the registration, you can have instances where registered voters go to the registration centers to register again. At times too, because people have lost their voters card or they have forgotten where they registered as voters or have relocated, they try to register again. In these instances, our system will later identify their registration as double, thus making them ineligible to vote in the elections. We want to use this Let the Citizen Know platform to urge all those who registered either in the 2020 mass registration exercise or in the 2023 limited registration exercise not to attempt to register again as voters. Such persons will not be able to vote in the 2024 general election.
And the application for the transfer of votes is actually happening today, Wednesday. Also, let's move to the government through the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, which has paid the first-term arrears of caterers under the school feeding program in all the 16 regions. A statement issued by the Ghana School Feeding Program says some deductions on the total number of cooking days for the first term were made. Now, the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana School Feeding Program, Mr. Siba Alpha, in an earlier interview explained the modalities of the payment and assured the caterers that processes have begun for the payment of the second and third terms.
If any of them, as we have stated, feel that genuinely that there have been some underpayments or they were not paid the way they should have been paid, we have throughout the regions, we have our national regional secretariats, we have the regional coordinators and then zonal coordinators. We have asked them to see them for redress. And so they shouldn't be so much worried about whatever issues they have. Once we get it, we'll verify, we'll do the investigations, and then we'll be able to pay them according to what they are supposed to be paid. And then the other thing is about the rate. We are supposed to pay them 1 cedi to 20 Ghana pesos. And so we have also stated that so that it will facilitate them, it will facilitate their calculations of how much they are supposed to get and what they got, whether it tallies with what we have paid to them. There are, let's say, 3 terms outstanding: first term, second term, and this current term. You know, currently who is in session. So if we add the current term, it will be terms. But now that we have cleared the first term, we are left with second term and this current term. That's what we have got. But we have been given some strong assurance from our stakeholders that the money for payment for the second term